Hey guys, welcome to this exclusive Patreon edition of Vanishing Gates. So basically what I'm going to be doing is for those who are, helping out on the Patreon page, our patrons, I want to give you guys a little extra bit of here and there that nobody else gets. Some extra, footage here and there, some content, an extra show here and there. I want to do about maybe a show a week, maybe two if I have time, because we still have to do the regular show. Maybe just some small behind the scenes stuff. Maybe I'll show you around the man cave studio here, Vanishing Gates studio here a little bit. This is up in the air name for which one it was. First it was Man Cave Studio, now it's Vanishing Gates Studio, and now it's a thing you know. Actually, I think we called it that the first few episodes, which were all audio only. Kind of like this was going to be, but I didn't like the audio quality of the device I was using. So I figured, you know what, let's just do a video and call it good. So today's show, as I said on the Facebook page, the first 5 Patreons get to choose the first 5 topics. Well, we have one that signed up so far, and he was the first one to sign up, our buddy Jeff. Thank you, buddy. This is your topic. He brought up wanting to talk about ghost ships, specifically, see if I can find the name of it here, and all of these piles and piles of notes, which I keep because I need to. Because unlike Jack, my memory is not so great. And yeah. Anyway, there's 2 ships we're going to talk about. The Deering, Carroll A Deering was the one he wanted to hear about. That's the second one we're going to talk about. But the first one I wanted to talk about because the situation happened prior. And that's the maybe more famous, the Mary Celeste. You've heard about it here and there, I'm sure. Everybody's heard about it. I didn't know a whole lot about it until I actually sat down to do some research. And there is a lot that we can go over. So I'm going to go over some of the basic history stuff and then kind of get into the conspiracy of what actually happened with the Mary Celeste and see if we can't touch into something cool here, okay? Now, I have footnotes because that's how I do things. I'm not going to read entire columns of stuff to you. That would just get aggravating to everyone, mostly to me. You guys would probably be fine with it. It would drive me up the walls if I had to just read an entire column all the time. So I have footnotes. That's how I go. Anyway, so on December 5th, 1878, the Celeste, an American merchant brigantine, was found adrift and abandoned by Canadian brigantine, another kind of boat, the De Gracia off the Azore Islands, okay? I'm going to screw up all these boat names because I am not a nautically based person. I know how to be on a boat and not fall off the side of a boat. I know how to cast a line from a boat, how to jump off a boat, how to climb onto a boat, sometimes how to operate a boat. I don't know much about boats, okay? Just simple fact there. How many of you guys know how to drive a car but couldn't work on it? That's why there's mechanics and guys like Jeff, who's a car guy. Anyway, so built on Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia, and launched under British registration as the ship Amazon in 1861 first, the ship transferred to American ownership in 1868 and was rechristened then the Mary Celeste. She was documented, and why do we always refer to boats and ships as she? I've never really understood that. Guys, if you know why, let me know in the comments. I'm sure Patreon has comments. I hope it does. If you're a patron, you should be able to make comments at least in there. Or email me, vanishinggates@gmail.com with 2 G's. All right? Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. You know, we're on Twitter. I started an Instagram account for some reason. I have no idea how to use it, so don't expect much on Instagram yet. And, of course, the Facebook page. Every Saturday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Watch us live. Join in the chat. Anyhow, so she, again, no idea why they refer to boats and cars as she. I guess it's going to be a guy thing, right? I don't know that girls do that. Refer to their car as he or him. Anyway, she was documented as being 99.3 feet long, 25.5 feet wide, and 11.7 feet deep, and she weighed 198 gross tonnage. Guys, that's a pretty good sized boat, I would think. I don't know that much about boats again, but like my boat's like 12 foot. So in comparison, it's a pretty good sized boat. As the Amazon, so under that name, the ship had a few bad accidents, and in 1867 in October, she actually was run ashore in a storm, was so badly damaged that she was abandoned as a wreckage at Cape Breton Island. So that wasn't the worst. I mean, there's other things that had happened. I didn't document everything. You can Google it. It would just get convoluted, and it didn't make a lot of sense. I know that a lot of sailors and fishermen and stuff seem to be, especially back then, really superstitious. And so maybe all those other accidents were compiled as a list to kind of prove, hey, look, there's something really wrong going on with the ship. Maybe it's cursed. I don't know. It didn't say that in the articles that I was reading, but you can kind of read between the lines and make assumptions as to what people might have thought and why they felt it was necessary to document this information. Frankly, it wasn't that important until this grounding when on Cape Breton Island, um, because it was abandoned as a shipwreck. So on October 15th, the ship was brought up as a derelict by Alexander McBean and was of Glace, Nova Scotia. And I thought it was Grace. I had to write Glace because I know nothing about Nova Scotia. If Joden Bonaparte was here, he'd probably correct me. From the Nighttime podcast. Nighttime. Anyway, free shout out to him because he's awesome. So badly damaged, blah, 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 bought up by Alexander McBean of Glace, Nova Scotia, and within a month, the ship was sold to an American businessman, to a local businessman in the area who sold it to an American mariner, Richard Haynes, in November of 1868 for $1,750 US. I'm guessing back then that was a gigantic amount of money. I mean, it's a pretty good sum of money now. I don't know anyone would be upset about getting a $1,750 check, even now in this day and age. I know that it's a huge difference in cost value. I don't know what the dollar percentage was then, but it seems like a very large amount of money for a ship that's been wrecked. It just seems like a lot of money. But I'm no sailor, and this man was an experienced mariner, this Haynes guy, Richard Haynes. Haynes spent another $8,825 US to restore the ship and made himself captain. Okay, so now he's a couple grand in the hole, a few grand in like 10 grand in the hole, something like that. Damn. It's a lot of money for a ship that was wrecked for you to fix. And it gets better because he doesn't even get to keep the damn ship. He makes himself captain. He registers her as the Mary Celeste as an American vessel in 1868. So he had her for like a year because in 1869, his creditors seized the ship as a way to pay the debts that he borrowed, I'm guessing, to refurbish the ship. Not the best investment one could make. It's like not a good idea. So the creditors sold the ship off to a consortium that was run by. It wasn't run by. I don't know how consortiums really work. It's like a corporation kind of thing, a group of people. But the main dude was this James Winchester guy. Okay, and the ship went under $10,000 worth of retrofitture in 1872. More retrofitture, and her dimensions were enlarged to 103 feet in length, 25.7 feet in width, and changed to 16.2 feet deep, with a second deck was added, and there was a bunch of other changes too, like the masts were changed, and I don't know what any of that stuff means to a ship, aside from it made it bigger, and maybe a little bit faster, or heavier, or capable of towing more cargo. Again, I'm not a ship guy, guys. Sorry. Anyway, on October 29th, in 1872, the ship had a new captain and a partial owner, Benjamin Briggs, who married his cousin. On a side note there. Benjamin Briggs married his cousin. Not second cousin, his cousin. Experienced mariner, though. So, Briggs and his cousin wife had two children together. Arthur, born in September 1865, and Sophia Matilda in October 1870, and I'm guessing with their web-dash feet and hands, they're probably really good swimmers. Now, they might not have web hands and feet. Anyway, in October 1870, Benjamin took Sarah, his cousin wife, and Sophia Matilda with him on the Mary Celeste on the first voyage after the expensive retrofitture, leaving Arthur at home with his grandmother. They don't say which grandmother or if there were more than one. Because cousin wife. Now, Briggs, being one of 5 sons of a seafaring man, was skilled and knowledgeable about how a ship should run, and he chose his crew very carefully. I mean, there was a list of them. I didn't write them all down. I didn't take the time to write almost any of them down because really it didn't seem important. But he got guys that knew what they were doing. They were experienced. They'd been on boats. He knew what they were like. He knew how to do it. They were a good, crack, solid team. Okay, and the people that met him said they were nice guys, very calm, peaceful, polite, friendly, clearly knowledgeable about what they were doing on the sea and the ocean. And so everyone said it was just a good crew altogether. So it makes it even weirder, the whole situation of the not having, any trace of crew left. So Briggs arrived at Pier 50 on New York's East River to personally supervise the load of the ship's first big haul, or the first hull after all the retrofitture. 1,701 pounds of ethanol stripper, or dentured alcohol as they call it sometimes. By the way, guys, it's really poisonous. It's wood stripper. Okay, it's not, when you hear alcohol, it's not the alcohol you want to drink. It's the alcohol you use to remove paint and tar and things and clean things. It's like goof off. It's like ether almost. Anyway, so don't try to make a cocktail with it because you'll freaking die. You're going to die if you do that. So don't. On Tuesday, November 5th, Mary Celeste departed Pier 50, and moving into the harbor, the weather conditions worsened. It became really questionable, so the departure was delayed until the 7th, when the ship and the crew finally were able to set off into the Atlantic. Now, while the Mary Celeste was setting sail, getting out of the harbor and everything, another ship, the Gracia, as we talked about prior, was harbored and loading in Hoboken, New Jersey. The captain, David Morehouse, who knew Briggs, and there's a question, they might have been close friends. Briggs's wife had mentioned that they were buddies and they'd hang out, but we're not sure if that's really true. Part of that's to tie into some conspiracy that comes up later, because there's a lot of conspiracies involved in this, and possible ideas of what happened. Anyway, that thought was debatable if they were close friends, but was waiting as the ship was being filled with its cargo of petroleum set for Genoa, by the way of Gibraltar. The Gracia left for Gibraltar on November 15th. It was only 8 days after the Mary Celeste departed, and it was actually able to leave New York Harbor and get into the Atlantic, and followed approximately the same route. Trade routes, there's a reason they stick to those things, because if you get stuck adrift or you're not able to keep going, you want to be in a place where you know other people are eventually going to come across. Seafaring people know this, okay? Mariners, sailors, captains, they'd be aware of this. The practice is still used today. Usually you want to find safe routes because of weather in some places. There's still patches of places you want to avoid for a lot of different reasons, and they know this stuff by now. So, on December 4th, 1872, when the Gracia had reached 38 degree 20 foot north, by 17 degree 15 foot west, midway between the Azores and Portugal, approximately 1 p.m. land time, or it would be Thursday, December 5th on sea time. I don't know how the difference there, guys. A ship was headed towards the Gracia in an erratic and very odd fashion, and as it approached, it became clear that the ship was the Mary Celeste. But being there were no signs of anyone aboard, it just looked like the ship had been abandoned. You didn't see anybody up on the decks. You could tell the sails were in tatter. They weren't well done. The ropes were hanging in funny ways. It was just triggered some alarm. So the captain of the Gracia, Morehouse, sent his first mate, another guy, to board the Mary Celeste. And the ship was completely abandoned. One hatch was sealed shut while 2 others were open. There was no sign of violence or trouble at all. But the ship's papers and the captain's navigational equipment were missing. There was food in the galley. The galley, though, it didn't seem like it was going to be prepared, so it was like stashed, like they kept it in the shelves. They weren't in a hurry to make it. It was just there. Like if they needed it, it was there. So they didn't bother to take anything with them like that. They weren't like frightened in the middle of a meal and had to leave. So there was evidence of something random happening all of a sudden. There was just no evidence of anything really happening on this boat, aside from people not being there, and the life raft was gone, as well as the captain's papers and navigational equipment. There's around 3.5 feet of water in the hold, which is a lot, but not an amount that would alarm you. So, I mean, there was even a sounding rod they left on deck. So that's what they take to dip down to see kind of how deep the water is in the hull of the boat to see if they're safe, or if they need to start bailing. Well, it wasn't enough for them to get on the boat and leave. It didn't make sense that would cause them to evacuate. And there was not like a bunch of leaks anywhere. They couldn't find any hull breaches. It basically looked like there was a lot of water came over on the top, and went in under the doorways and stuff. So basically, a normal amount of water would be on the boat. A little bit crazy, but not crazy enough to be alarming or worrisome to a crew that knew what they were doing. It didn't make sense that that would be a reason for them to evacuate the boat. The sails were again in poor repair. The ropes were pretty much just strewn about, half-assed. The log, the ship's log. So the captain's paperwork was gone, but the ship log was found in a mate's cabin. And the last entry was dated November 25th at 8 a.m., 9 days prior to finding the vessel, and showed the ship's location 400 nautical miles from where de Gracia had found her. The mate that entered the ship said that the cabins were dirty and a bit wet from the intruding water, but overall, I mean, they were in good order. So it wasn't like there was a problem. It didn't look like they were boarded by pirates or they were in a big hurry to leave. Everything was still kept nicely. There was still stuff where it should be, that kind of thing. All evidence pointed to a put together and rounded out departure on the lifeboat. So it just seemed like everything combined that they were able to, of calm mind and accord, just decide to get on the lifeboat and go. Sound mind and sound body. Why you would do that without an emergency, I don't know. Especially in the middle of the frickin' ocean, in a lifeboat, when you're on a large ship. A large, safe ship. It's capable of traveling much faster than your freaking lifeboat. When these findings were reported to Morehouse, he decided to, again, under maritime law, salvage the abandoned ship. And he sent 3 men of his crew to man the Mary Celeste for the salvage. So he was going to go back to where he needed to go, which was Gibraltar, and they were going to follow to Gibraltar, in which case they'd get in touch with the maritime court or whatever they call it, and they would start the proceedings to, well, we found this abandoned maritime law, since it's mine now, so I can get a reward for it or keep it or whatever. It's still something that happens today. You just have to be careful not to get, the assumption that you pirated a ship and killed the crew, which is kind of what was suspected here at some point. Because when de Gracia arrived on Gibraltar on December 12th in 1872, the Celeste arrived the next morning because the crew had run into fog. They were a short crew, a small crew, 3 guys. Both boats weren't fully crewed, but they were all experienced and knew what they were doing. The ship was immediately impounded by the Vice Admiralty Court, that's what it is, as salvage hearings would be necessary for the claim. When the Mary Celeste salvage hearings happened, there was a question that a human element was at hand. There were sharp gouges in the bow. I guess they had hired a diver to join and look and see if there was evidence of things. So there's in the bow, there's dark, deep gouges found. It looked like it was caused by a human element, man-made instrument. There had been axe gouges on the ship, around there, here and there, as well as blood stains and traces of blood on the captain's sword. They found a captain's sword under a bed. These arguments, the arguments that these things were evidence of the human factor being involved were believed by and pushed by Frederick Solly Flood, Attorney General of Gibraltar, and he was convinced of foul play after hearing the testimonies of the men from the de Gracia, and from the diver that he had hired. After an investigation was done, though, Flood sent reports to the Board of Trade in London based on his personal conclusion. Though completely stupid, his conclusion was the crew had gotten drunk off this poisonous alcohol and committed a mutiny and then escaped for fear of being caught on the lifeboat. I want you to let that sink in. Supposedly, these guys downed a bunch of very, very poisonous alcohol. You're going to drink that? A pint of that? You're not killing nobody. You're dying excruciatingly as your lungs get turned into liquid. It's not going to be a fun way to go. It's just highly toxic. If it doesn't just kill you from toxic poisoning before it burns your insides out. This guy was not a very intelligent person. Anyway, supposedly, the officers, whilst drunk, cut into the bow to make it seem like the ship struck into something, and that the ship had been found elsewhere, and the log had been changed, and the guy just couldn't accept that the ship could have floated on its own for that far, that distance. He said, no, it's not possible. Flood made a lot of heavy claims, including that Winchester had the crew killed, the other owner of the boat, the Mary Celeste. But after scientific research came out, because someone decided to do an actual investigation, it was found out none of the claims had any ground. The stains weren't blood. The bow was caused by water. The cuts in the bow were caused by water, a natural occurrence from being on the water. It was all natural. False claims in the news that the Mary Celeste was overinsured was disproven. So there was also that idea that maybe he had overinsured it and caused this thing to happen, paid him off so he could collect a bunch of money, but that was disproven. The idea that Morehouse laid in wait and killed them in an act of piracy doesn't work, as they left 8 days after in a slower boat. There's a theory that Briggs and Morehouse acted together to fake a tragedy to gain from it, but that makes no sense for a lot of reasons. Like, why make a huge spectacle of an event if you're trying to get away with it? And why would Briggs never come back? He had a son at land in America. He's not just going to abandon his kid for a few bucks, to fake a piracy. It makes no idea. The idea of piracy was brought up too, by the way, as actual pirates, but the crew's personal effects would have been taken, like all of it. Everything would have been looted. They would have taken everything, not just some of the stuff they left behind. I mean, they would have taken everything. They would have taken the ship too, most likely. One jackass even claimed that Briggs killed his family and the crew in a fit of religious fervor. He later wrote an apology because, that's the proper thing to do. There was an idea a waterspout may have played part in the water on board, which kind of makes sense. It would have frightened the crew maybe, but it wouldn't have been enough to necessitate them evacuating the boat and just leaving it. There's a lot of theories and ideas as to what may actually occur to on the Mary Celeste, and we'll probably never actually know. It's been so long now. Unless someone comes out and says, hey, I was Briggs, I've been on this island for so long, I changed my identity and my name, here's my family, or I'm the great-grandson of so-and, great-great-grandson of so-and-so, here's all the evidence and paperwork. We're probably never going to really know what happened on the Mary Celeste. Some people have even claimed aliens, but clearly it was Bigfoot. Clearly. No. I actually don't have an explanation on this one. They got in the life raft with the navigational equipment and left. I have no idea why. Couldn't explain it if I wanted to. So, that's kind of weird. But that's not the only odd story. And here's what we come to what Jeff wanted to hear about. The Caroll A Deering. Now, the Caroll A Deering was built in 1919 in Bath, Maine by the G.G. Deering Company. It was named after the owner's son. You're going to name a boat after a son you gave a horrible name to. What a sick thing to do, man. You've already gave him a terrible feminine girl name. Now you're going to name a boat after him? Oh, this is boat. She's named after my son. That just sounds like you're sending mixed messages to the poor boy. I'm not one to judge, but give the guy a chance to figure it out for himself, will you? You salty sailor. Jesus. Anyway, it was built for commercial use right off the get-go as a cargo ship. It had been in service for a year before its final voyage to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. A year. Not a good run. The schooner, measuring 255 feet in length and 45 feet wide, had 5 masts. It was a huge ship. So, compare that to the Mary Celeste. This thing was massive. On January 31st in 1921, it was found grounded on Hatteras Diamond Shoal, North Carolina, which is ironic because on Saturday, if you were listening, our last live stream, we actually were talking about Roanoke Colony that disappeared, and it was right there in the Hatteras area. In fact, Roanoke Island was changed to Hatteras. That's kind of just an interesting little caveat there. I didn't plan that out, but it works kind of cool. So the case is comparable to the Mary Celeste, is one of the greatest unsolved maritime cases. Unlike the Mary Celeste, though, there were signs that a meal was about to be prepared. Her sails were up and in good condition. The crew's personal effects were missing, along with life rafts, logbooks, navigational equipment, and, of course, the crew. Gone. Poof. The Deering Company was said to be the oldest shipbuilding company in the country at the time, and the Caroll A was the last of almost 100 boats built by the company. The Deering Company used the best materials, and the 3-deck ship showed it. Fine and hard woods were to be found throughout the ship, and masts measured 108 feet long, and a top mast that was 46 feet long. All of this is lost on me, by the way, because I already mentioned it in the crap about boats, so I don't know if that's amazing or whatever. I do know the woods they talked about using would have been awesome to look at. They put a lot of money into this damn thing, and they made a piece of art, judging by how they talked about it. I'm not going to get too nerdy on the woodwork and stuff. You can check it out later. There's all sorts of articles about what they built it with. The ship even had a bathroom and lit bedrooms, which I guess at the time was a huge deal. Um, those parts I do understand. It's important to have a bathroom and lighted bedrooms on a ship. Oh, and it was also heated by steam. Sounds kind of cool. Not sure how they would do that on a sailboat, but whatever. The Deering was being prepared to sail out of Boston to Buenos Aires and then Rio de Janeiro. The captain and part owner William M. Merritt got sick after leaving Boston, and the ship diverted to Port Louis, Delaware. He was found to be too ill to continue, and the first mate, his son, stayed with him to take care for him. Captain Willis T. Wormel was chosen as a new captain, and he had hired his first mate named Charles McClellan. And it was kind of a hasty hiring. They had said they were in a rush to find someone, so they just hired who they could hire. On September 1920, the Deering is finally underway to Rio with a shipment of coal. Upon arriving in Rio, Wormel meets an old friend and confides in him that he doesn't trust the first mate and he isn't fond of the crew. Coming back from Rio, a series of events take place that end with the Deering running aground, and Deering left Rio and headed to Barbados, where the first mate was heard objecting to the captain, saying it was difficult to correct the crew without the captain getting involved and claiming that he had to do most navigating as a 66-year-old captain had bad eyesight. The first mate was heard making claim that he would get the captain before Norfolk and was arrested. Wormel forgave him and even bailed him out of jail. Then they set sail for Hampton Roads. Now, Wormel had told his friend the only person he felt like he could trust was this guy Bates, who was like some kind of engineer or something. I don't have it written down here somewhere. So from Wikipedia, the ship's next sighted by Cape Lookout Lightship, good God, in North Carolina on January 28, 1921. When the vessel hailed it, the lightship's keeper, Captain Jacobson, reported that a thin man with reddish hair and a foreign accent told him the vessel had lost its anchors in a storm off Cape Fear. Jacobson took note of this, but his radio was out, and so he was unable to report it. He noticed that the crew seemed to be kind of milling about above deck where they shouldn't be. They're usually not allowed to do that kind of thing. But on January 31st, 1921, the Deering was spotted at Diamond Shoals. It had run aground, and due to bad weather, the ship could not be boarded by rescue teams until February 4th. The Coast Guard scuttled the ship using dynamite on March 4th. Now, before the Coast Guard scuttled it, the Department of Commerce, Navy, Justice, State all looked into the incident. Both the lifeboats had been missing, along with the navigation equipment, the crew's personal effects, and it seemed that a meal, again, had been in preparation when the ship was abandoned. Now, there were reports prior to the situation of them seeing the guys milling about, or right after, of a strange steamer ship in the area, and in the same area. And a message was found floating in a bottle by one Christopher Columbus Gray that contained this weird message. Deering captured by oil-burning boat, something like chaser. Taking off everything, handcuffing crew. Crew hiding all over ship. No chance to make escape. Finder, please notify headquarters Deering. Now, the handwriting was found to be that of the engineer Bates. That's the engineer, yeah. Who the captain said he was the only person on board he could trust. And the handwriting was verified as Bates later by Bates's wife. There was argument that was forged. Someone actually said that no, later it was said that Christopher Columbus Gray said it was a forgery, but that makes no sense why he'd be able to forge perfectly the handwriting of someone whose wife would say, yeah, no, that's his handwriting. It's definitely him. You know, if you're married to someone, you probably know what your spouse's handwriting looks like. And unless you have a good record of the guy's handwriting, you're not going to be forging it yourself in a way that's going to make sense. Now, some other ideas, aside from like piracy, which is what that sounds like clearly, hurricanes. The U.S. government, particularly the Weather Bureau, strongly advocated a series of vicious hurricanes raging in the Atlantic as a cause of the disappearances. As mentioned above, however, both the Deering and the Hewitt were headed away from the path of these storms. In any case, several authors, including Larry Kuesch and Richard Weiner, have pointed out that the state of the ships indicate an orderly rather than a panicked evacuation. Piracy, which makes more sense to me. Captain O.W. Parker of the United States Marine Shipping board certainly believed piracy responsible. He stated that, in his opinion, piracy without a doubt still exists as it has since the days of the Phoenicians. Captain Warmell's widow was a particularly strong advocate of this theory. It was believed that a group of pirates were responsible for various disappearances. However, no real evidence has ever emerged for the theory, and no suspected pirates have ever been caught in conjunction with the situation. So Russia, Communist Party piracy. During a police raid on the headquarters of the United Russian Workers' Party, a communist front group in New York City, officers found papers that called on members of the organization to seize American ships and sell them to Russia. These papers showed that a communist plot was afoot and was circumstantially linked to several shipboard strikes that previous year. This was widely believed in regard to the Deering at the time, particularly by hardline anti-communists in the government. Though an intriguing suggestion, no definitive proof has ever been found that it actually happened. There's also a theory of rum runners and, of course, mutiny. The mutiny thing might make a little more sense. Where would they go, though? Where would the mutineers go? They're just going to leave the ship, go onto lifeboats again in the middle of the ocean. Think about it, guys. If you're going to abandon a ship, wouldn't you be better off just taking the whole damn thing and taking it somewhere shady where you can get away with it and sell the goods on the ship? If you're going to commit mutiny and become basically pirates, why wouldn't you take the time to take the ship to somewhere seedy where you can just off it and escape in your different directions and divvy up the booty? You know, I mean, it makes more sense to me than just getting on a lifeboats and leaving. So, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but it's obviously Bigfoot. Obviously Bigfoot. Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this very special Patreon exclusive episode of Vanishing Gates. Appreciate your patronage. That $1 goes a long damn way for this one guy to do this one show. And we appreciate it. And anyway, as always, for your other hosts, Jack and Seth, I'm Jason, or Jay, if you will. Thank you for watching Vanishing Gates. Have a great time. We'll see you Saturday, 7 Pacific Standard Time. And I think this weekend, we're going to talk about, what was it? Oh yeah, Eastern State Penitentiary will be our live stream. So, hope to see you guys there. Have a great day, and tell your friends. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. We'll see you guys soon. Bye, guys.